Hey, what's up everybody? Before I show you guys the mod that I did on this R2-D2 fish tank, for anybody that finds one and likes fish, I really don't recommend using this as a fish tank after all the comments that I've read on it that are just negative. Not really just on the whole thing itself, is it's really a cool replica of R2, and it's got electronic sounds and movement as his head rotates. And it has lighting inside too that's even cooler, especially for what I did, man. Really adds to the mod. But on the fish tank part, just bad stuff, man. Like people's fish just outright dying in it. Like maybe the plastics leaking out toxins or whatever. Or people having their furniture ruined. Mainly because, find them here. Show you as an example. As you can see, it's not tilted back as much, but it is at a tilt as he's in the rolling mode, like my little action figure here. But the way they did the fish tank part is the bottom of it's level, but the top of it's tilted. And I guess once you've had water in it a while, if you're in a warm area, you get condensation building up, and because it's tipped, it runs down the back. And the fish tank part basically just sits inside of him. You take off his head, and then it just slides in there. But I guess it would just build up on the inside of the shell of him and gradually start to leak to where you get this big puddle on whatever piece of furniture you have. So it would ruin furniture by getting it wet. So not good. Then on the lighting, I don't know why they use, it's cool that they did multicolor. It's red, green, and blue, but they used one small 5mm LED for each one of the colors, which obviously isn't going to be enough light to shine into this big fish tank, especially when there's water in it. That really dulls the color. And then to make things worse, to waterproof it, because the LEDs are shining through some vents, and then when his head rotates, it's got enough of a vent to where the LEDs will alternate on colors, which I'll show you guys, but it's kind of just moving back and forth. But they had like a sheet of clear plastic, kind of like packing tape or whatever, to cover up those vents, and because it's not stuck on there really good, all got discolored. As the person that had it before me obviously used it as the fish tank, so that was really dulling the lights. But when I show you guys the red light, it is turning on, but my camera won't pick it up. It just acts like the light's going out completely. But it's because it's a red LED. I have not found any red LEDs yet that get really intense bright. I think it's just the way they do the plastic part of it. But the green and blue, a little bit better. Definitely look cool to the naked eye. It's set to where you can have it just solid blue light on all the time, or have it to where it alternates between the three, or have it to where it's sound and movement activated to where if you walk by it, it goes off. If you make just a small sound, like, it goes off, which means it's going to be going off on every single sound, which is what it was doing. It'd do all the little R2-D2 bleeps and blips, and then his head would rotate and the lights would come on. To where, for what I did, it would drive you crazy after a while, or just outright even. I could see that, and people were saying maybe that's what's killing the fish, is that constant noise blasting down into the water, just driving them nuts to where they have heart attacks or whatever. Fishes don't like loud noises, and that would be enough to do it. So just poor design for a fish tank. But if you want it just as a display piece, if you're not into mods, definitely would make a cool display piece. I could see why people just got it for that. Otherwise, sorry I'm taking a while on showing it. I wanted to bring up some other ideas that I thought of before doing this video game related mod, but First, and I know it's possible, I just live in the wrong freaking place to find what I'm looking for. I was originally going to find a plasma ball and set it inside the tank, which would be easy. Just glue it to the inside of the tank and then have the cord hanging out the back of it, as they got two little cutouts. As the way they did it is you got one 12-volt power supply to control the whole system, and then it's got another jack to where you'd plug in the pump so it would also run that. So there's a couple little spots where you can hang a cord out. So if anybody's thinking of doing that, man, only reason I didn't do it is the plasma ball I found was way too big. But if you could find a smaller one, I know it would look badass as a plasma ball, let alone just making a lamp out of it. And then for you Star Wars fanatics that like to party hardy, another thing that I figured would fit, and just I didn't want to do it, and they weren't cheap. The only thing I can think of is like a disco ball, but it's not the reflective type stuff like a disco ball. It's where it's a big black ball about this size or whatever, and then it's got reflectors all around it. They're the new party thing where it just shines beams of multicolored light all over the place. Kind of like before they started doing the ones with lasers, but I don't see why you couldn't put one of those in it and have it like a party light. So, a lot of things you can do to it. Is just, once I spotted a system in my collection that I didn't mind taking apart and using in this mod, as all I used was the circuit board. It was just perfect fit on everything, man. I mean, everything fits perfect. Any bit bigger and I wouldn't have been able to do it. So, show you guys what I did, and then I'll show you the electronic stuff. I'll turn out my light here so you can see it better. There, for any retro gamers, if you can see into it there, I've already pretty much given out the information visually on what system I used. Otherwise, like I say, man, really cool presentation of R2 there. And normally that would be the forward-facing part of his head. I turned it off right as it was moving. Like I say, man, really sensitive on the sensor, especially for the sound one. And the switch, I don't know if it's just the quality of the switch on the back of it. It's either off, sensor that does everything, static, which does the 3 lights, or just blue light. And it's kind of stiff, so while you're trying to turn it off, his head would be going crazy because of all the noise you're making. So that's the deal there. I'll show you the sides here. It's like I say, man, for a collector's piece, it's pretty cool. Really cool. They didn't do bad at all on the job, and the legs are permanently fixed in the position they're in. I did get the instructions with it, and it looks like the legs just clamp on, and then the bottom one clamps on. I'll show you up close here. It's just not going to pick it up. There. If you guys go big screen and hopefully have a decent monitor, you can just make out some of the picture there behind the Shinobi cartridge there of the big fish's head that's chasing after him. Like I say, man, it's already darkened in there because of all the shading, so it's requiring those little LED lights to light it up, and it's just not enough. But it looks really badass on the circuit board there that I took out of a Sega Genesis Model 3. That's the part where, unless you're in a big city, man, you may have a hard time finding one of those. They're not rare, but they're kind of scarce, and I don't know why. I've only been able to find 2 of them in my area, and the reason I scrapped one of them, both of them were in pretty bad shape. The other one was more just scuffed up, so I painted it. This one, it had cracks in the shell and stuff, so I did not take a really nice looking Model 3 Genesis and scrap it to use for this mod. I wouldn't do that, man, because I'm a collector. If I find one like that, I'm keeping it for anybody that wants to know. Otherwise, for anybody that wants to try this, I pretty much used everything on the R2 here to work stuff, and I'd already modded the Genesis for composite video using gold jacks because that was busted on it for where you plug in the cord. And as you can see, I drilled holes on the bottom of them here to mount the 3 RCA jacks for video and sound, and then I scrapped this idea mainly because I have multiple types of dyslexia plus ADD, so I kept forgetting what I was doing and wasn't paying attention in the first place. But I'm glad that I already had it put together to where I couldn't take it apart without desoldering stuff. Originally, I was going to have the power supply plugged in and have the cord running up alongside and then out the back here. Which, after I thought about it, is when I come up with shit like this, it's not all planned out. I just started working on it and kept coming up with ideas. And then doing a little tweak here and there, which I'll point that out to you. There is some stuff you'll have to do on the circuit board to make everything level. But was originally going to do that, and then nah, glad I didn't do it. So I made it to where I can unplug the power supply from the Genesis if I just want them displayed, and I just put a hole just to the rear where I put the RCA jacks so I can feed the cord up through the bottom of them, and then cut out a section in the fish tank part so it's got enough room for the wire as a... I'll give you an example here on the controller. This part that just keeps the cord stiff there at that point so it doesn't get pulled out. I just cut off a little bit of that. I'd say about almost a centimeter's worth, and just used my fingernail to cut around it on the power supply, and then just slid it back on the cord away so that cord has a little bit more bend. Otherwise it was pushing too hard against the Sega system and the side of this guy. And then on running the wires for the AV mod, I drilled a separate hole, and I did all this cutting and stuff on this with a Dremel. I recommend having a Dremel or some kind of a tool similar to it, to where you can use cutting wheels and grinding and whatnot, as I got the whole kit. But used a lot of cutting wheels on this, man. A lot of stuff. As I kept changing my plan as I went, as I was going to use some of the top insulation on the Sega here, and then decided not to do it because it looked bad and it wasn't staying in the spot I was going to use the insulation just under the cartridge. So that I just scrapped it. So it's just straight circuit board, and all the other stuff got scrapped. Then on the power switch and reset right now, and I'm not going to change it. In order to put in a cartridge, obviously, and also to turn it on or hit the reset, you got to take off his head here, which this just lifts off, and then reach inside to do it, which no big deal to me. For anybody that's really technical, that doesn't mind working on small stuff, I don't see why you can't go to Radio Shack, find either the same size or a larger on-off switch at least, and then take that off, do it wire, and then have the on-off switch somewhere hidden on them, so you don't have to reach in there to do that. But that's up to you. I wanted to keep it simple. Now what I had to do to get everything level, and these controllers vary on how they did the plugs. As you can see, 6-button Model 2 Genesis controller. This plug, that area there on both sides makes it pretty thick compared to the original. What I did was use some of the plastic that I cut away, not here but up top and stuff, or just parts that I didn't need, as show you here. Take his head off. Anyways, here, there's a little, not really a screw, just a stud or whatever there, and there was kind of like a flap hanging over, I guess, to where they expected you to have one of the charcoal type things under it for the water, or I don't know. Anyways, I cut that all away, all but for this piece, because you need that piece so the head will line up right. But got enough flat pieces of plastic out of that to where I could use some of them as washers. And on the thinnest parts of this plastic, I made about 3 washers on each side here, just to raise this up from the bottom of the tank. Otherwise it was too close to this lip and I did not want to cut into this. And then the back of it, mind me, because I kept changing it, because that's where I was having problems, was getting it at the right level to where I could plug in that extra thick controller plug. But this is where just make an extra washer out of the thin stuff. I can't remember if I made one for the back to put under the circuit board or not. But anyways, what I did was cut out a square of the thicker stuff and just drilled a hole in the bottom of the tank just behind the circuit board, so I can make like a clamp, so when you pull up the cartridge it's not putting all the tension on the front. So I just have one screw there, and then the clamp that I set up in the back. That's the only thing holding down the circuit board, but the cartridge comes out easy enough to where it won't damage it. It's really solid. So other than that, it's mainly just the light show that I'll give you guys and the sound effects. There, now you can see the picture a little better. Cool pictures, man, right out of the movie. And like I said, the other side is them escaping, or I mean not escaping, but just going away from the city, where the city's kind of just down in a corner. That they got a nice size picture of the submersible, but way too dark. But I kept it in there because it's better to have at least some kind of a background, even if you can't see good, than just solid white. As once you take everything out, it's just white. So put it back together here. Oh, and this is the part I was talking about on the periscope, right next to his main eye there, that round circle with the dot. That's just a clear piece of plastic that you can look through, and then the periscope was dead center. And they even screwed up on the feeding tray, man. Made it really hard to get food in there. You open that up, and then, as you can see, it's kind of, well, it doesn't really show up too good. Oh, that's it. Okay, it's because his head's not lined up. That grated part normally would be lined up with that little flap, but you got to get the food to fall through the grates through this little opening. So just everything about the fish tank part bad, but everything about the R2 good. Oh, and another thing to point out, because it was driving me crazy just for the fact that that switch is stiff, and the first thing that turns on is the movement. Recommend before you plug this in for R2's power supply, turn it all the way over to blue light and then just backtrack once you got it plugged in. Otherwise, while you're trying to plug this damn thing in, as soon as you get power, because it's so sensitive, it's going to want to start moving while you're holding it like this or whatever, and you might break something. Okay, that's because it was out of alignment. It will line back up, but that's all it's going to do there. Anyways, blue light. I'll unplug my main light here to show it better. Say, man, looks really cool, and I wanted to have just a bare bones circuit board and nothing covering it, man, just to make it look retro on the electronics and stuff, so you can see all the guts of the Sega. And I just think it came out really good. Like I said, if anybody wants to copy me, go for it. Otherwise, try something else. I'd like to see some other people mod these puppies instead of just having it as an empty chamber. So that's on just straight blue. Let's see, that should be alternating. It's green, blue. Where's where the light comes through? Let's see if we can show up good on red. Yeah, that red is just weak as shit. If I could find some better LEDs, I'd put them in them, but as long as blue and green looks good, I don't care. Put it in the sensor. Definitely not a very good switch. There, let's put it on the alternating. Anyways, one thing that some guys and gals that are really good at modding when it comes to just outright switching stuff out. Why am I? There it goes. Anyways, they've got what looks like little clear plastic things stuck in all the other little lenses and stuff on them, but they don't do anything. I don't know if those are the sensors for movement or what. Until you open this up, I don't know, but if it's just a clear piece of plastic, it looks like you could fit a LED inside of them if you wanted to have some more lights on his head. And see, this little R2-D2 toy has it on this main piece up here, but all they did was just put a rounded piece of black plastic there. I don't even think that's clear. Hard to tell. It's really shined up, so I don't know if it's tinted or if it's just black plastic. Almost looks like a lens, like maybe that's part of the motion sensor or something, and it needs to be dark. So, I say, until you open it up, there may be other mods you can do to make it even better. So, I don't want to make this vid insane long. I'll turn it off here, and anybody has questions on it, on stuff I did, where I'd show you more on what I cut out. It's pretty much just obvious stuff that you got to cut out of this piece to get everything to fit for cords and whatnot. So pretty obvious on what you do once you look at it. But the way I have it, I can't lift this out enough without busting the wires. Otherwise I'd show you guys better. But anybody that wants to ask questions on how I did it on further or whatever, on explaining it or pointing stuff out, let me know. I know some of you are new to modding, but really this was not that hard to do, man. Simple mod that looks really cool. Catch y'all later.